Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Rixson. This is their part number 6 ADJ. This is an overhead concealed doorstop is what it is. Overhead concealed doorstops come in different varieties or derivatives, different styles and functions and sizes and finishes. But at the end of the day, they all do the same job. They're meant to, in one way or another, limit a door to a particular degree of opening. Limit a door meaning it can dead stop, it can be just a stop, it can be a holder, it can be a friction style, but at the end of the day, they're all meant to control the door and pretty much limit the door degree. There are different functions of these, which we will touch on those when we get to the catalog, and we'll discuss where these are used. First, let's just start with some dimensional properties. So this is a 136 is this part number. 680J is the series, but it's a 136. It's a pretty unusual one in the sense that it's for a narrow door. Now, this could be very typical and common for interior low or medium duty volume, but you wouldn't see a 680J on a high-use exterior door. It's not a heavy-duty unit. Overall length of the aluminum track, you can see it's about 16 inch. Overall width of that track, about 1.25 inches. And the thickness of the track is about 1/2 inch. I'm just going to separate the two parts. This is the aluminum track that will go into the top of the door, is where this is going to go. And I'll tell you, admittedly, a lot of people are quite intimidated by these, and I know that I was. I wasn't intimidated. I think I was frightened, in fact, not from the perspective of understanding how they work, but putting router to door. Prepping a door for this is not entry-level, door hardware machining work. But take it from me, it's easy. It may be intimidating. It's when you prep for a piece of hardware. Some pieces of hardware have one prep to do. Some have 2 preps to do. This only has 2 preps. A 3 prep? I'll have to think about that. What would take 3 different operations? A hinge would be a single preparation. Just prep it, you're done. A sauce hinge, a McKinney hinge. Let's say McKinney hinge, a sister company to Rixson. McKinney concealed hinge, they're MK60 maybe, MK45. That would be 2 preparations. You'd have the outer part of the hinge, and then you'd have the deeper part of the hinge. That would be a different prep. So 2 preps there. There is a piece of hardware that required 3 different setups. Well, a flush bolt technically does. You've got the plate, you've got the body, and then you've got the bolt, the rod that comes through. It's not a good example, but the bottom line is, it's just a matter of like layers in AutoCAD. You prep here, and then you'll prep here, and you're pretty much done. Each prep will be different, naturally. That's why they're a different prep. So don't be intimidated. When we distill down the machining aspect of how to prep for these, it's nothing other than this broken into several small components. Okay, now the door portion, or the frame portion, I should say, this is the frame portion. This will go up into the rabbet of the frame, the jamb mounting bracket. This is the arm. This is what would be called the slide block. This is literally called the slide block. You're going to see slide blocks in door closers is really where you'll see them. A slide block, or automatic door operators as well. A slide block literally has a profile to it. It will slide in that channel. Okay. Slide blocks in closers are generally replaceable, not always, but generally. And that's because they're made of plastic. This slide block is bronze, would be my guess. A self-lubricating metal that's going to be, have a low friction coefficient and be quite heavy duty. Definitely couldn't imagine using a plastic slide block in a overhead concealed or surface closer, because that's what's going to make contact with the component in the track that will stop it, that will hold it, that will dead stop it. So that needs to be a durable piece. This is a stop only, and the 6 is available in a stop only. There's no holder, no friction. Now in this unit, This, and then we'll get to the catalog, but right here there are a couple of pieces of what are probably a dense closed cell neoprene so that it will compress in a hyper extended application. I can't compress it with my hands, but those two little pieces of deadening material there will allow 5 or 7 degree of movement in the door before it will truly dead stop, before all that bottoms out. So let's talk about where you're going to use these. Let's talk about how you'll mortise them. We'll switch to the screen view at that point, and let's go through the product catalog, and that'll be that. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, where will you use an overhead stop, holder, friction, multi-function, overhead unit? Surface, concealed, standard duty, heavy duty. Anywhere where you want to limit a door. And that goes all the way from the exterior doors in the United Center, where the Chicago Bulls, the Blackhawks, endless, every major group that will play Chicago, that's one of the 2 major big places that they'll play. And those doors just get bam, bam. I mean, the exodus of people leaving, especially a winning night for the Blackhawks or the Bulls, those doors are really going to get used. So all the way from this exceptionally high volume, definitely, I won't use the term abusive because there aren't people trying to pull the doors off, the hinges, but you've got people just crushing through those doors, all the way down to, in the middle, let's say a hospital door, in a patient room, the bathroom. They'll put a friction style there. It will limit the door, but a friction type, the friction function is meant to keep the door in a particular position. Okay, you don't want the door to move casually. You want it to stay in that position without it being unintentionally moved. You have to make a voluntary effort to move that door because it's a friction style, meaning that the slide block just doesn't slide through the channel. You have to pull or push it through. Certainly commercial duty, certainly high volume, but a lot less quantity of uses or cycles on that unit compared to the prior example. All the way down to a residential application, where you have doors where you're going to see the ubiquitous hinge pin doorstop. A gizmo that attaches, the hinge pin goes through it, and it's got a couple of rubber pads, and it's the shape of a quadrant in a sense, where the door opens. That quadrant will move, it will hit the casing, and then the door will make contact with the other end of it, limiting the degree of opening. Those are fine. Those are a Band-Aid sort of option, and they're not meant to ensure that the door will not be pushed past that degree. I've had customers call me, say, I need the right piece of hardware. What happened? Well, somebody pushed the door with the hinge pin doorstop on it so far that they ruptured into the veneer of the door and broke the door face. A classic example of my last home had a powder room, a half bath, a very small footprint, concealed sort of half bath that was in the mudroom that you wouldn't really ever know it's there. And the space that we allotted was so small that the door couldn't go to 90 degree. It could only go to 75 degree before it hit the commode. A 10 light door, opaque glass, just to allow some natural light into this space. Perfect example. If you just take that door and push it, it's going to hit the commode. You've got glass in the door. And I did a job for a client where they had 12 doors in their Manhattan condo. Small doors, 2'6", 2'4", 2'8". 2'8" was the biggest. And limiting the degree of opening on those doors, you've got really expensive boutique knobs or levers, whatever it was, and you've got drywall that's been painted and built. And, the cost of construction is huge. The last thing you want is that trim smashing into the drywall. I mean, this client did not want baseboard-mounted door stops, floor-mounted door stops, hinge pin door stops. What can I do? I don't want to see that hardware. I got the perfect answer for you. It's perfect. You'll never see it when the door's closed. You'll never see the hardware. You won't even notice it when the door is open, is the bottom line. So that's where you're going to use these. Door control. You need to be able to control the door. Another example is when you have an exterior 3.0 18 gauge, 3.6 18 gauge, 4.0 18 gauge, 3.0, 3.6, 4.0 16 gauge hollow metal doors in the back of a strip mall or a restaurant, whatever it is. And these doors open, and the wind catches it, and it just tears it open. That causes threat of harm to people, threat of damage to property, destroying the lock, destroying the wall. I've had clients call me and say that the crash chain that I sold them was defective because the wind grabbed the door so hard it ripped all of the screws out, slammed against the building to such a point where the door hit the outside corner of the masonry, bent the door around that position, and then cracked the glass in the door, and the crash chain is defective. No. Whoever specified the use of a crash chain, not me, made an error. That's the wrong piece of hardware for that. When the architect, when the specifier, when the industry professional, the contractor, the owner, the engineer, the person paying the bills, all share responsibility to making sure that something is correct. It doesn't fall onto the guy that took the money and sold the crash chain. I don't know what you're using it for. You ordered it. You didn't elicit any sort of request for conversation. There was no, path leading in that direction. Crash chains they're really for storm doors, in my opinion. And they do make heavy crash chains that, people are led to believe are okay for those applications, but those sheet metal screws will pull out. You put a commercial grade overhead surface or concealed door stop on there, door control on there, problem solved. And that's what really those are for, all that entire gamut. People do not use them because they cost money. They're not $4. The hardware, even an inexpensive unit like this, is still quite expensive. They are orders of magnitude more expensive than baseboard stops or floor-mounted stops, etc. They're also not used because the people that need to prep the door and frame didn't price that out, can't do it, refuse to do it, don't want to learn how to do it. The owner doesn't want to pay them to do it. And that's the obstacle that you'll deal with selling these a lot. In commercial settings, hospitals, the aforementioned United Center, that's the only way you would specify those openings is to have that hardware included. It's as important as any other piece. The lock, the hinge, the closer, every other piece. So that's where you will certainly end up seeing these used. And it is important to know, and I think maybe a takeaway idea on this material is that it complicates the opening. Yes, you do have to coordinate with other hardware, but you have to coordinate with other hardware all the time anyway. You have a kick plate on your door? Great. Do you have surface vertical rods on your door? You have to coordinate that. You have to make sure things don't hit overlap. An armor plate in a lock set, you have to think about that as well. It's just like the same as making sure that the door is code compliant. If it's concealed, you've got to make sure the door and frame can receive it or are prepped for it. If it's surface mounted, you have to coordinate that with your door closer. Everything has to be positioned and mounted. Every manufacturer of this material has guidance when it comes to installing this material compatibly with other items. You do have to make sure, speaking of other items, is these pieces of equipment are meant to be referenced off of a vertical axis of pivoting, a center hung pivot, an offset pivot, butts, geared aluminum hinges, stainless pin and barrel. The vertical axis of pivoting on all those hanging devices is static. It doesn't move. But if you have a piece of equipment like a Sauce hinge or a McKinney hinge or a Tectus hinge or Sugatsuni, or there's one more, I forget their name, it doesn't matter, a concealed hinge. The vertical axis of pivoting in that regard floats. So the hinge really acts like this. Rather than it acting like this, where my knuckles are that static axis of pivoting that doesn't move, a McKinney or a Sauce, it moves like this. So the vertical axis of pivoting is floating. The point of that is, when you order this hardware, you have to make sure the manufacturer knows what you're hanging it with, because The templating will very likely change. Where you have to prep everything, it may not, but it might. This job that I did in the Manhattan condo, yeah, it changed. It didn't change much, but where they prepped everything had to be based on the fact that this client had all sauce hinges, concealed hinges, beautiful concealed overhead stops, concealed hinges, just great job. Sometimes manufacturers will charge more for that, so be mindful of that as well. Rixson did in that case because they had special templating that they had to put to it. Know that up front when you're putting all that hardware together. Let's switch to the screen view now and let's start taking a look at the supporting documentation. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are looking at. Speaking of looking at it, let's take a look at some images. There's the label. That's what's in the box. If it seems small, that's because it is. This is for a very narrow door, the narrowest size actually, available in a 6ADJ. Now this is a close-up view of a couple of things. Well, a number of things. The slide block. This is the set screw that you'll loosen to move this entire assembly so as to achieve the degree of stop that you'd like to accomplish. Since we're talking about that, the maximum degree of stop on a door holder, any door holder, is 110 degree. There is no such thing as one that goes beyond that. These are those dense pieces of rubber cushioning items that I had mentioned earlier. This obviously keeps everything together, keeps the rubber from sliding. Slide block. The bracket that will go to the rabbet of the frame. The end of your slide channel. Your screw package. So that is everything that you get in the packaging. Now, there is a link below this video to the cut sheet. Let's take a look at the cut sheet. Now, here's the cut sheet, and it gives a summary overview of the Rixson 680J. So what I do when I'm looking for an overhead stop, I'm looking for surface or concealed, and then I'm looking for standard duty or heavy duty, and then I focus on any derivatives. There might have multifunction, adjustable, low profile, things of that nature, derivatives under those two top categories. Is it surface or concealed? Is it standard duty or heavy duty? And then whatever derivatives would fall under any of those total of four options. So the 680J is for interior or exterior doors. It can be single or double acting, and it's non-handed. And we'll talk about how easily it is to make it double acting. Recommended for moderate traffic, medium weight doors. Low profile, they say that it's adjustable. It's not adjustable in its profile. Its degree of stop is adjustable. Low profile concealed channel designed for installation in aluminum doors. It can go into steel doors or wood doors as well. Heavy duty shock absorber provides 5 to 7 degree of compression before dead stop. That's where all of this comes in. Degree of opening is fully adjustable, so that can be adapted to changing needs. Up to 110, absolutely. Complete screw pack for installation in wood or metal door and frame. Security screws can be ordered separately. Additional charge. Standard architectural finishes. That arm is what you're going to see. And actually, this is, if you were standing here looking up, this is what you would see, the underside of all of this. Let's see. Durable slider cam and shock block. I would say that the slide block I mentioned earlier, the bronze, is the slider cam, and the shock block. Slider cam, shock block is what I would say. That's the travel right there. 110 degree maximum opening, except the 680J for center hung, which is 105. So if you're doing center hung, it's limited to 105. 1 3/4 minimum door thickness. For thicker doors, consult the factory. you know, the installation is not really going to change for a thicker door. It's going to be biased. But the templating is what's going to need to be discussed, because how thick the door is and where that is positioned in relationship to the static vertical axis of pivoting is what they want to take into consideration. Probably, you know, to provide special templating. The channel dimension. Hanging means other than standard butts or offset pivots require special templating and pricing. Consult factory. We talked about that. Think about the Sauce hinges or the McKinney hinges. The 6 ADJ is a stop only and is UL listed for fire door assemblies. Now, the next document is the entire product catalog of the entire series of overhead stops and holders. They call it Checkmate, is what the term is, the name that Rixson gives to this entire series. They have a summary of those options in the beginning of the catalog, so that makes the selection easy. Are you doing concealed or surface? From that group, pick either standard duty or heavy duty. If there's a dot over here, you've got some derivative options, you know, special features, so to speak. Then it will define the parts. I will leave that up to you to discover. We've talked about that. They talk about the mounting types. The only reason to really talk about the mounting type is this concealed mount in method A, method B applies to the 6 ADJ. For those mount types, there is no, because it's concealed, there's no function of some sort of unusual application regarding a bracket that you might need. There's not any way that you're going to run into trouble when you have a concealed mount. And what I'm driving at is when you have a surface mount, you might need some help. These angle brackets, of which there are, I think, 2 of them, will come into play when you have a transom application. But, you know, you can have a transom above here. It doesn't matter if it's a transom or a header. So there's not much to really be worried about. The only difference between A and B is one is single acting, A is single acting, and B is double acting. And the only difference between that is how you prep it, just to draw attention to that. This portion is cut out, as you can see here. This portion of the face of the door is not cut out in single acting, but it is in double acting. That's the only difference. Okay. As we scroll through the catalog, then we're going to go through all of the different series. 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, I think, is next. No, 7. Like I said, they all do the same job. They'll look a little different. 8, 9 ADJ, 55 series, and then you're going to get to parts and drawings, a parts list, and then, of course, the how to order. So you can put together the proper part number that you need. Now, the proper part number that you need, let's go back to the 6 ADJ cut sheet. Here, we got down to the bottom here, but then we ran off before we got to this. So, what size do you order, or what is the model number under the 6 ADJ that you'll order? That's got everything to do with primarily the door width, the nominal door width, and as important, but secondarily, the means of hanging. So the part numbers can change depending on how you're hanging the door. And an example of that is a 3-foot door that's hung on butts requires a 336. A 3-foot door that's hung on center hung pivots requires a 236. So you got to watch that. Mistakes are made because part numbers are used. You know, this table has to be studied. Take your time. Make sure you get the right situation. Swing clear hinges are not permitted on these super narrow doors, and that's what the 136 is that we are looking at here. Now that exhausts the product catalog. Let's go to the template, and let's take a deep dive into this template. It looks intimidating. It's not. Let's do it now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. let's dispel the intimidating nature of the overhead stop. So all overhead stop installation instructions are always going to include some mumbo jumbo. Some of it you don't really need to read. You need to read all of it, but 25% of it is informational. You do need to know it, but after you know it, you know it. They'll all include a drawing like this. I think it's this drawing that, does a number on people. But most definitely they will all have a page like this with a table or tables. This is a very simple one in the sense that there's not a lot of information here at all. You'll usually have several tables on one page. The 6ADJ, because it's adjustable, doesn't need to give you the dimensions for 85 degree, 90 degree, 95 degree, 100 degree, 105 degree, 110 degree, that kind of thing. Because it's adjustable, they're only telling you where to position everything, and then you can slide the adjustable portion of it to accommodate. So, if we were to take a look at another set of installation instructions for an item like this. Lots of data. Okay, this is what it normally looks like. But out of all of this, you would only need one line, is the bottom line. So, as I said earlier, you don't need to see 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 110 degree. That's why there's not really much here to see. So that's nice. So, half of this information you don't need at all. We're looking for the difference between the two. Butts and 3/4 inch offset pivots or center hung. For the sake of simplicity, let's just say we're doing butts. Okay? We know that we're doing a 136. Therefore, the only thing left to us is this, 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 and this. That's all. So, let us do one more thing. You can get your highlighter out now and highlight these dimensions right in this line. I like to highlight stuff, and it's because as I'm looking at it and referring to it multiple times, I don't run the risk of there being an error. What I'm trying to do is pull up the template yet again. ADJ, downloads, installation instructions. Okay, it came up. Okay. So what the point of doing this is I want to have half of the page showing the A, B, C, E, and F dimensions. So A, B, C, E, F. So you need to do, in your door, you need to do two preparations. And it's going to look like what's here. Okay? It's basically from the edge of the door, it's going to look, here's your door. Here's your door. It's going to basically look like this. You're going to have a preparation, a channel. But then the second preparation is you need to cut out part of the face, which is on the push side of the door. Those are both rectangular shapes. They're geometric, simple rectangular shapes. They happen to be different length. You've got an F dimension and you've got an E dimension. The E dimension is for the arm cutout. The F dimension is for the channel cutout. They have a different length, they have a different width, they have a different depth. Do the F dimension first when you're prepping, would be my guess, but let's go through them, A through F. The A dimension is the vertical axis of pivoting to where the prep starts for the door channel. You can determine that vertical axis of pivoting if you have a hollow metal door. Well, let's say a 3/0 wood door. Let's say it's 35 and 13/16 and it's a 36-inch finished opening. Well, 3/16 divided by 2, 96 thousandths plus or minus. You know that you'll take the edge of the door. You're going to take, pardon me, you're going to take 2 5/8 and you're going to add, 96 thousandths or 3/32 of an inch. That's your A dimension. So it's half of the gap between the edge of the door and the frame, because let's just assume that's where the vertical axis of pivoting lies. And that's where that will start. Now, if we were going to continue to talk about the door channel, the next thing that's important is how long is it? So that's the F dimension, 6 1/16. But in order, the B dimension then is that same dimension when your door is at 90 degree to where that first screw hole is on your mounting bracket. You'll note that there are 4 holes, and the end towards the hinge is that end of the bracket that has just the single hole in it here. That's what we're referencing, that center line on the B dimension. Your C dimension is 0, but there's an asterisk. Let's see what that asterisk means. I think it means, and we did, of course, find that asterisk, butt mounting only, reversible non-handed. So in this line where they have the asterisks, yeah, okay. So you can see that in the center hung area, they do not have dimensions for our 136 here, because you can't install it that way. So C is 0. That's a little scary. That means that your prep for the face of the door is going to go all the way through, down to out of the edge of the door. So there won't be any door left here. Don't worry, just prep all the way through. And you can see why. When the door gets open, the arm is going to hit the door itself. Now the E dimension, that's going to be the length of that same cutout for the arm. And that's 16 5/8. And then, of course, your F dimension. So it's going to end up looking like this. The dashed line is your prep for the channel. It's 3/4 deep. We know the length of it. It's 16 1/16, 3/4 deep. The other question is how wide is the prep? And let's just toss this. Let's open this. And the width of that channel is going to be 1 1/4 inches. So you've got all 3 dimensions. And what that's going to look like in the top of your door, here's the top of your door. Hinge. I mean, it's basically going to look like this. 16 1/16, 1 1/4 inches, 3/4 deep. That's what it's going to look like. So that's pretty simple. You can see now there's no reason to be intimidated by these. Now, you have to do this other prep on top of it. But again, we're just going to break it down. We know that it's going to be E dimension long. E dimension is 16 5/8. So it's going to go from here over. Actually, I'm not happy with how I drew that. Well, we'll leave it. It doesn't. We know that it's going to be 16 5/8 overall length. We know that the depth of that, well, we know how deep you're going to prep it is 1/4 inch. So we know we're dealing with 16 5/8 length. We know we're dealing with 1/4 inch deep. The question is, how far back into the face of the door do you go? Now, the interesting thing about that is they don't really give us clear direction, I would say. I would have a note here. But the bottom line is, that cutout, that's 1/4 inch deep, that's 16 5/8 long, or 16 and whatever it is, whatever the E dimension is. That's going to flush to the outside of the preparation for the channel. So we can you can determine it. It doesn't take really any work. We know that we've got an 1 3/4 thick door. We know that it will divide that by 2. So we know that that's 7/8 of an inch. We know that in the 1 3/4 thick door, we have an 1 1/4 wide prep. So we could take an 1 3/4, we can subtract 1 1/4 and divide that by 2. So that's going to be a 1/4 inch. So what that means is, from the face of the door to where the channel starts is 1/4 inch. So because they're showing that aligned, it's going to be 1/4 inch. It doesn't have to be that much over in this area. Actually, I think it does, though, because you're breaching the edge of the door here. So that prep is going to be basically 1.5 inches deep. 1 3/4 minus 1/4 is 1.5 inches. You've already prepped all of this area of the door deeper. So here you're just going to do a 1/4 inch prep. Okay, a 1/4 inch prep. Because our C dimension is 0, this is going to go all the way to the outside edge of the door. C dimension is 0 here. So what that's going to look like, that's all going to be gone. That's all going to be gone. So everything here that's solid, that's all gone. A 1/4 inch deep. Oh, anyway, you get the picture. All that's going to be gone. So at the end of the door, looking at it this way, it's going to look, well, actually that's not accurate. It's going to look like this, but then you're going to have that channel that's going to be there. Okay? But the end of the door will definitely, I don't like that. It's going to look more like this. And then you're going to have that channel. That's what it's going to look like. Okay? So pretty easy. Once you've done it, it's pretty easy. Absolutely, get a 2x4. Put it in a vise and test. Practice. I didn't the first time. But before I had attempted this for the first time, I was, you know, I knew what it needed to look like. I was familiar with the hardware, the whole 9 yards. Get a 2x4 and test it. It'll work out great. So that really explains everything. So page 2, we don't need to look at anymore. This we don't need to look at anymore. We've talked about that. Determine the device number for the door opening. That means which one of these lines will you use, or down here. Note A, B, and C dimensions are measured from the center of the hinge, not the edge of the door. That's why I was taking, you know, 36 minus 35 and 13/16, actually divided by 2. I actually said that dimension incorrect earlier. It's going to be, you know, it's good. You're not measuring it from the edge of the door, but from the center of the prep. So if you hook your tape measure on the edge of the door, the high side of the door, you're going to add half of the gap between the edge of the door and the jamb, which is going to be 36 minus 35.8125 divided by 2. That's the margin on each side of the door. Sorry, there we go. So that's, you've got 3/32 of an inch, but you're then taking half of that. So you're taking, you know, less than a 1/16 of an inch. So a very small amount. I mean, a negligible amount. Locate the B dimension. That's up in the header. That's just elementary. They don't tell you where to place it, but it'll go in the center of the rabbet of the door. Actually, I would not be placing it in the center of the rabbet of the door. I would be establishing the rabbet dimension and the inset. So what that means is, let's just draw here. Oh. What is the rabbet? Probably 1 15/16. What's the inset? Okay, you can then derive the center line of this. And that's where I would be placing that jam bracket. They give you the dimensions that you would need to prep. 1 by 3.5 by quarter. If it's a hollow metal frame, have the factory prep that. You can do it, but you're gonna need to do some work: cutting, welding, drilling, tapping, modifying steel. And this is a pretty elegant way to look at what the edge of the door will look like for single acting or double acting. There's our prep. I was trying to draw this when I was doing this. Locate the C&E dimensions. The mortise is a 1/4 inch deep. We discussed that. That's for the arm to penetrate only, as seen here. Install the holder with screws provided and locate the adjustable stop block by tightening its set screw. So what I would do is I would loosen this, or I would first test. If I didn't need to make any adjustments, I wouldn't. If I did, I would loosen it. I would put my door in the position I wanted it to dead stop, except I would come back 5 or 7 degrees, and that's where I would tighten this. If you have to have it dead stop, you'll need to run it back shy 5/7 degree. Dead stop would be like if you had, well, you've got and these are pairs of doors. Okay, you need these doors to open like this. You need them to dead stop so that they don't crash into each other, meaning the projecting hardware. That would be a definition of dead stop. Just talking about how to reinforce the frame and other notes. It's always important to know left hand shown, right hand opposite. Yeah, they're showing you a left hand or a right hand reverse. And just in your mind's eye, you'll flip that over if you're doing the opposite door hand. They will tell you what fasteners are included: 1/4-20 machine screws or number 14 wood screws. For the door, they've got 5/16 machine screws or number 18 wood screws. So that will tell you what's in the package. After that, there's nothing left in here that you need to look at. So I think at this point we're ready to wrap up this video. Let's do so now. Before we do that, there is a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page, and from that page, from this page, you'll be able to pull up not only all of the Rixson products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you know the name Rixson at all, if at all, it's probably for pivots or floor closers. Probably either of those, but most likely pivots first. The point is, though, they make more than those two items. They make checkmate overhead stops and holders. They make life safety hardware, electrified closers that are connected to fire alarm control. Scroll through that part of the catalog. Get into electromagnetic door holders. They have a comprehensive offering of these. Scroll through that part of the catalog. Here are the floor closers, the mighty floor closers. Rixson's been making floor closers for decades, and I'll point out something to you very interesting in a moment. Get into another section of the catalog. Now we are dealing with overhead concealed closers. We're into the pivot section, and we're just about halfway through the catalog. So you get the idea that there's a lot of material in here to check out. The pivot section occupies a large portion of it. A variation on floor closers. Now, what's nice about I was about to say the variation on floor closers is the next section of the catalog here. But in the entire catalog, you'll always see something like this. An exploded drawing giving you part numbers, either in the catalog or in the price list. It had historically only been in the price list, but now it's in the catalog itself. So customers will literally need only the arm, and that's how you find it. You get the catalog open, you find what's available. Interestingly enough, unfortunately, actually it was, I think it was an 0608. Unfortunately, the client needed the slide block only from this. Not available. Had to spend a whole ton of money to get the entire arm when he only needed the slide block. That's unfortunate. Because slide blocks are so common to replace in the automatic and overhead manual closer industry, they really ought to supply slide blocks only. Other interesting documentation is here. Older versions of the catalog. I have one here from 2008, a price book. But we can do better than that. I've got one from 1920. And when we click on that catalog, it's going to pull up this here amazing document. 100 years ago, what was Rixson doing? Well, here it is. I know that I have others. I have catalogs several feet thick if I stack them all end to end that I have to have scanned, and we're doing it. It's a time-consuming process because, you know, a Yale catalog or a Corbin catalog from 1905, it's 400 pages thick at least, but very interesting to go back in time. Very, very, very interesting. Okay. Great research value. Let's wrap up this video on camera. In conclusion, if you have any questions on the overhead stops and holders, the Checkmate series from Rixson, please feel free. I do like to think I understand how the material works. I can help you determine which product you need, get the order placed, talk you through the installation process, if any of that's even remotely required. The name Rixson is synonymous with this and those other product groups and has been a name certainly since the 19th century. We also provide repair service on door closers, and in the case of Rixson, floor closers. Our record is we've repaired a Rixson closer from 1904 in New York. Brought it back to proper operating condition. It'll probably be good for another century at that point. Any questions on the Rixson 6ADJ-136? By the way, this color is 32D. This is stainless steel. You can get this, of course, in the architectural finishes, your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, your satin, polished, oil rubbed, powder-coated finishes, black, very common powder-coated finish, your bronze, aluminum, things of that nature. So when it comes to finish, clearly not to worry about that. They can provide that. Any questions on this or any other Rixson product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.